Everybody, welcome back with the Platt and Laliette. Welcome to the second episode of our, what we're not calling a podcast because it hurts the algorithm for views, but we're going to discuss this game called the Bazaar. How are you doing, Laliette?
Doing great. I've had a pretty good week in the bazaar outside of going on a business trip that really cut down on my playing time. But after the patch, I've been able to get probably 6 games in, and I'm able to win at the typical 8 to 9 wins per game. How was your week?
My week was pretty darn good. After the patch, I got my first game, I got 3 wins, which was like, or I got 4 wins. I got 4 wins. It was the first thing. Then I did 10, 10, 10. Then I really started, like, I think the meta started to catch on. People started to realize how good bees are. And I started getting 7, 8, 9, 9, 7. Like, it was kind of like haven't gotten 10 wins in the last like 5 games. And I think that's because I've just ended up going against my build, but better. It's like, these people making it 10 wins are really strong. So overall, I've honestly had a blast since this patch. I would say overall, I actually prefer the meta of the last patch. I felt like it was more open and interesting. This one I don't like as much, but it's not really cutting down on my enjoyment of the game because Pygmalion's still the strongest. What else could I want?
For sure. And we'd never really cover this, but I think we should from week to week. You made legend or whatever they call that top rank. You
Yes.
popped in at like 186, was it?
It was 197, I think was where and my highest was 186. I think that's where I peaked.
Yep. So that's really exciting, and I have now finally made it to Diamond 5.
Okay, so you're getting pretty close. I'm currently sitting at 204. This isn't the lowest I've been, but it's close. But also, I haven't played any games today yet. Whenever I log in, I usually drop about 10 ranks. I get up about 10 ranks. I just don't play enough to climb much more than that. Hopefully tomorrow and tonight, I'll be able to get up to like the 150s is kind of my goal. Worst case scenario, though, I end up dropping a bunch because I want to try to break the meta with some new builds, but who knows? That usually leads to losing as opposed to winning. I do really want to quick before we get any further. I want to say thank everybody. Thank you all for the support on the first episode. I don't know if you watched this because you liked us. Me and Laliette disagree. I think it was mostly clickbait. He says it was mostly people being interested, but we got over 1,000 views on a brand new channel, a channel with under 100 subs. It's currently at like 95 or something right now. So that was an insane level of support that I did not expect. I expected it to be our worst performing video. It turned out to be the best by far. So thank you very much. Now,
Yeah, definitely. And please down below, let us know. Did you click on it because you got baited by the bait skills that Platt has worked very hard on, or is it because there's just not a podcast or similar content that kind of encapsulates in a specific setting? Like, I mean, you can go watch some of the best streamers and they do a great job, but you have to watch for a much longer time to get all of those little pieces.
yeah, and ask anyone out there. I'm the best baiter in the business. All right, everyone knows it. Okay, so we've kind of talked about how we feel about the Bazaar this week. There was a pretty big update, though. They had a big balance patch come out, and we kind of alluded to it, but I think we should kind of go over it a little bit. So here are the patch notes they released. We're not going to go over them in detail. We already did a video, and most of you have probably seen most of them. We just kind of want to make sure that we hit the important things. So the very first, the one that stands out, I guess the elephant in the room, the bees in the room, is the bees. So there's a lot of notes here, but really the most important one is if you come down here to the Pygmalion and you come to the beehive. It no longer uses all busy bees. Oh no, it's got a nerf. Instead, it uses 1 bee a day, uses 1 bee on every item use. So what I want to call out here is that Caltrop starts at diamond tier. That is one of the biggest nerfs in the entire game you can get. It basically means you can go from relatively consistently finding the merchant or the item relatively, because there's a gold merchant and he's not that hard to find. He shows up relatively commonly, to like, this is like fucking hard to find. You don't get it to like day 9 or something like that. Or I think you can get it earlier, but like it's very hard to find it. While they gave us a silver Caltrops. They gave us a silver Caltrops that's more powerful than Caltrops because 1, it self-scales its damage. Every time you buy a property, it gets more damage. 2, it triggers yo-yo. So every time they use an item, you get to use your bee Caltrops and your yo-yo Caltrops. 3, it is a use effect instead of a trigger effect like Caltrops. So Caltrops deals damage whenever they use an item. This gets used whenever they, use any item. So it triggers all of your skills. It triggers your vineyards. It triggers the Caltrops doesn't trigger vineyards. It doesn't trigger landscraper or fort. This triggers all of them, including the yo-yo. It's busted. It's absolutely broken in half. The most powerful item in the game, in my opinion. And I think this is a huge miss, and it feels like a last-second addition that not a lot of thought went into. And that's not to say I think that they're bad at balancing. I think that they just thought this would be a give and take. They're like, okay, well, people are complaining about bees because people would have 8 bees on their board. You would use a weapon, get hit like 16 times, and instantly die. And so they tried to just nerf it and change the functionality, and instead buffed it to an insane degree against every build instead. But Laliet,
Yeah.
I may have spoke too much there, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, matchmaking used to kind of decide how far you get with bees,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you play against people who played weapons, it's like you destroying them, and sometimes you'd play against a pig that didn't really do anything weapon-wise, and you would lose. So, that's the consistency went way up. And one thing I will say about Caltrops is like the only counter to bees because it's not a use effect. So every time
Mm-hmm.
bee does get used, it will attack back, right? But it doesn't get attacked back by the bee. Well, as you know, bee wars are now a common thing where it's like you and the other guy have a bee, and it's like who's got the bigger, faster, better scaling bee.
100%. Yeah. So Caltrops is great for a B counter. There's not a lot of things. There's not a lot of items that counter an item that triggers on a use of an item. Like that's a pretty powerful line of text. But Caltrops is one. I wouldn't even say it counters it, but it is clearly good in the matchup. I would say. It still has the issue of needing to be scaled. Where the B, by the time you get the Caltrops at 5 or 10 attack, the B is at 150 attack, or if you have a crook, it's at 300 attack or something, right? But
Yes, you need a crook for your Caltrops.
so the bees used to just lose against Poison Vanessa because the Poison Vanessa would run effectively no items. It would just, and it's a pretty common build too. Like you could go up against Shield Dually that goes all in on shields. Like Harmadillo doesn't technically attack. And so it would lose to that. It would lose to Poison Vanessa, but you would destroy like Weapon Vanessa. But now it's like there's very, very few counters. In fact, one of the best counters for it is just other Pygmalion builds in the sense of Caltrops and HP. Pygmalion is very good against it, where your whole board is pawn shop, belt, a small item that you don't care about, it doesn't matter, and then double whammy, and then you just don't do anything, and then you hit him for 28,000 damage. It's like that's a really good thing against B because it doesn't do anything at that point for the most part, but it's very difficult to actually counter bees, even when you know it's coming, because most of your items are things that you do things, and that's what B likes. B attacks whenever you use a thing. So what do you think about the change? You think it was just like an oversight as well, just a mistake, or do you think that this was like they thought it would be as strong as this?
I I I don't know. I remember, I think I told you the night before the patch, I was like, bees are really strong. I'm doing really well with bees. And you're like, bees is inconsistent. So like, I don't really mind it too much because if it runs into like Poison Vanessa, Armadillo, whatever, like you were saying, sometimes you just lose and you don't even get to play the game. So it's kind of a very like, it reminds me of a lot of card games like Magic where you'd have like the solitaire matchups, right? Where you're just like only worried about yourself and you're not interacting with your opponent, which is really games other than Magic. But um, what did you think about it? Well, no, you already said that. Sorry.
No, but
You
like
said that
when
you
I
think
read
it
the
was
patch
last.
notes, I was there was two things here specifically in Pygmalion I was curious about. I read bees and I'm like, hold on a second. To me, this reads like a buff, but maybe I'm wrong because like I'm not a game designer, right? So I automatically, if I read something and I think it's my interpretation is like wrong, maybe I'll be like, all right, let's play it. But I was like, this sounds like it could be a buff, but maybe it's not as strong as I think because it's Caltrops, but it takes 3 spaces because you need to run the beehive itself. So maybe it is like okay. And then I kind of realized like, okay, then you realize all the reasons it's good, that it gets used, that it triggers on it. It just like the fact that it's a use effect. If they just took the use effect off B, it would still be probably broken, but it would be way weaker. Like suddenly now I'm not using it with Landscraper. I'm not using it with Yo-Yo because they just don't really synergize at all. You know, now you have to do a completely different build around it. So I actually think the use effect is the strongest part. Also, the Vineyard, that was one where I was like, it has been redesigned. It now heals 1, 2, or 3 times your value. And I'm like, okay, but that's just a buff in Landscraper. This is just a buff to what I considered 2 of the strongest items in the game already. So I was like, okay, they must have redesigned it to do something different. And even Laliette mentioned, he was like, oh, they buffed these items. And I was like, are you sure? They said they're redesigned. I haven't been able to play yet. Then he got them in game like, yep, they're just buffed. I'm like, what the fuck? They're like already so strong. People must not have been taking them because they must have not realized how crazy good they are.
That's right. And well, I think this is one of the problems you get. So like when you have very niche builds and items that you're not seeing streamers really play, which you're the one who got me onto like big HP heal, pig. So I wouldn't have found it organically, I don't think. You have the low level players who are just starting out, they see something like that and they're like, ooh, I want to try that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then they drop the win rates of the cards and the pick rates are low at the top because the other good players are saying, I'm not trying to play anything new or different. I'm playing meta things. And then you have people like you and me that are playing it having a lot of success, but getting it drowned out by the people who are playing it who are not doing well. So we're not playing it enough between the two of us or whoever else is having a lot of success with these cards to be able to give it a decent win rate. So when they, generally in game design, you look at like the pick rate and the win rate of cards, or well, usually it's a use rate, but it's much more a pick rate in this game because you have to draft the items themselves. So I think that's one of the issues that happened with that. And really what happened is big HP Pig got buffed for this patch. And that's why Platts had no problem with that.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, it's weird to me because like this was one of the Vineyard was an item that I was like, this is in the top 10 items maybe in the game, but at least in Pig, it's like a top 10 item in terms of its power level. And it's because it's specifically Vineyard, Waits, Bird. The Bird gets multicast, the Waits, whenever you heal, it triggers itself. So you're scaling, then you have Yo-Yo and suddenly so it's like, it's a pretty tight build. There's only like 3 slots of maneuverability, and usually that's going to be dedicated to another property anyway. But it's so strong in that context that I was just like, oh, they just made it, because the healing amount is hyper relevant because you need to heal past your max HP in order for it to count. So if they're chipping away with you at poison or something like that, like you have 50 poison, you're healing for 40. Yeah, it'll trigger a lot, but you're going to get less overall triggers. Whereas if it's suddenly now you're getting 150 heal, you're going to scale so much faster for so much longer. Yeah, that was one that I also thought was a miss for me. But I mean, I like it. I mean, I'll take my favorite items getting buffed every day of the week.
Yeah, I think they thought Bird was going to impact it much more than it did. And then, of course, unfortunately, B ended up being really good with Vineyard as well.
You could see me in one of my most recent videos, I think, learning in real time, because like I had my old heal build and I think I had the healing tense or something like that, and I'm like, you know what, I don't know if B is triggering every time is going to be better than the healing tense given all my stuff multicast, but I'm going to try it just to kind of see because I haven't really used B's. And then I put it on there and I was like, holy shit, of course this is broken. Oh my god. Like, and it was so much stronger that I was like, it kind of opened my eyes to how crazy strong bees are.
Other things, what got nerfed in that patch, and how are we now looking back at those nerfs?
Here, perfect. Bird got nerfed down to 1 multicast instead of 2 multicast. This is the most fair nerf I've seen in my life. The Bird is still fantastic. It's a great item. It is not, I don't think it's oppressively strong and overpowered. There are situations where I take Bird out now where I'm like, okay, well, it is only triggering twice. You know what? Maybe I'll use something that triggers maybe a little faster for earlier scaling as opposed, but like it's still a great item, but it's not as oppressive as it was. Loop starting at gold tier, I think that's also fair. It makes me very mad as a primary. Again, I'm talking Pygmalion because I know Pygmalion. We'll go over Vanessa as well because I'm interested in your takes on that. Loop starting at gold tier makes it way harder to get money in the early and mid game, but late game you don't really have that many money problems as Pig and anyway. And loop starting at gold tier means you don't really need it once you can get it. In my opinion, it kind of took it out of the game. It did also get a nerf because at gold tier, it's the same as what it was at silver tier. It's only +1 instead of +2. Overall, I don't use this item that much anymore because it doesn't show up when it's relevant to me. It usually shows up late enough where I just don't care. So I'm going to gumballs way, way, way less. I'm taking the chocolate bars way, way, way less. So it actually had a pretty big impact on how I play in the early game. Crook feels like it didn't get nerfed at all. It feels 99% as strong as it was, even though math-wise, it's obviously a bigger nerf than that. It's like a 20% nerf. It's hard to really feel it. Like if they have it, I mean, I don't tell because I was still beating it, but their numbers look just as big as they did before. Like, oh, instead of 300, it's, I don't know, 280 or something. I don't know. It's like, or 260, I guess, which is relevant. It's definitely a percentage, but it doesn't, as an emotional, looking at it, going up against it in the early game, it doesn't feel any different. But Crook, I still think is overrated. I've always thought Crook is overrated. I think day 1 through 6, 1 through 7, like it's really, really, really strong. If you get Crook on day 1 or 2, you level it up at 5, you level it up at 10 or something. You just have an early diamond Crook. You literally can't lose. It's insane. Once, like after day 10, it just stops. Like its ceiling is, its floor is remarkably high and its ceiling is remarkably low. I think, not remarkably low, but it's like it just doesn't go nuts like a lot of the really, really good 10-win builds. I've won with Crook, of course, but I think it is overrated, but it's still oppressive in the early game. I haven't done Giant Ice Club yet. This is maybe the item I want to try the most as well. The fact that it gets stronger whenever you freeze, or sorry, it charges when you freeze. That just sounds fun, but it's, you got to run it with Ice Struck. It's like, it just, this is tough because you want to run it with Ice Struck, probably, but Ice Struck wants you to have a bunch of small items to freeze a bunch of things. So you don't really, so, and also Snow Globe is a property. Neither of these are properties. So you have Snow Globe, which scales up property. So it's like, it's really hard to actually like use this because there's not a lot of like, so really you're using Igloo, Snow Globe, and this, and then maybe ATM, like just to have a 2 size property. So your thing, your stupid Snow Globe actually multicast 3 times. I don't know how this optimal build looks. It seems weak, but I want to try it. I want to beat someone to death with a Giant Ice Club for sure. So what about Vanessa or Dooley? I don't know which one you play more right now.
Definitely Vanessa. I did play Dooley for the holiday on Monday, and I did not do well. I eventually figured out how to get 9 and 10 wins with him, but the amount of work that it took was a lot of 2-4 win games. I'm so bad with Dooley, but I eventually figured out the dual core build where you have 2 cores, the armor core or whatever that's called, and then your normal core that you get from the game.
Can you get a second core?
There is an item. It looks like a suit of like armor almost, like, and Dooley kind of just hops up in there, and he's a Gundam
the mechanized suit thing.
Yeah. So that thing has damage and shield, and it scales up, right?
Okay.
So every time you use an item on one side, it gets plus damage. On the other side, it gets plus shield. So you put it like in the middle, and then you have your other core. And anytime you use like a level up ability or a card that says do something to a core, it does it to both of them.
Whoa, okay.
So you'll have some stuff that says like, make your core 3% faster, etc. You get to do it to both, add damage to your core, so. And then you get like this multicast little robot friend that you put on the end, and then he triggers like in 3 seconds, does multicast 2. Doesn't do a ton of damage, but what he does is he triggers twice, so he gets to scale up your damage. And then you have a bunch of other items that are trying to haste your cores, right?
Okay.
And of course, if it says haste the core, haste both of them. And then you just very quickly ramp up. You are very weak if you get like killed in the first 5 seconds, right? But once you get rolling, you're usually pretty good. That was the only build that I was able to be successful with. Other than I did hit once, I got 10 wins with a freeze Dooley build, but it was so hard to put together. And I believe, didn't they just move up the rarity of the freeze Dooley character, the friend? Starts with a P.
It'd be Pierre Conditioner. Now starts at Diamond tier. Same with the Robotics Factory. Now starts at Diamond tier. So both of those are probably pretty important. Um,
Roblox Factory wasn't good last patch in my opinion, so like I think it's weird that they had nerfed it the patch before from like ×2 multicast to ×1, and then of course you can level it up, um, and uh, and then they nerfed it again, and I was
yeah,
like, somebody was winning with this, but it wasn't me.
they overall they nerfed pretty much they nerfed the freeze here. Like they beta ray now can only freeze small items instead of random items, which is actually pretty noticeable, right? Because like this makes it really bad against some builds, but then Pierre Conditioner starts at diamond tier. So overall, like they just made it harder to get the build together. Maybe not making the power that much lower, but like it's harder to get the pieces. Did you notice the Chimera nerf at all? Slows for 1 second instead of 2 seconds. Is that felt noticeable, or the shipwreck nerf?
No, with that shipwreck. Of course, you felt the shipwreck nerf, but shipwreck's still probably the best enchantment target in the game. So, or at least for Vanessa.
Yeah.
So you still take it when you can.
Okay. I mean, that's really it for the balance changes. I don't know if anything else really stands out as like crazy. Like there's a lot of stuff in here, and I don't want to go too deep into like, oh, the actually, you know what? I do want to mention really quick. I really like the
The level,
level up rewards. I like the 5
yeah,
instead of 3. I love the guarantee at level 5. I think it's more fun. It's a little I think this is actually a little busted. Maybe it's actually a balancing thing, because maybe there were too many players getting like level up a weapon and they're doing a weapon build, and so it was good for them, and then other players that didn't have a good weapon like weren't getting it. So this will allow all players to evenly power up at that stage. um but Loliet, you were telling me that this actually makes you weaker, which I did not feel at all on Pygmalion. Like literally I haven't felt it at all. I didn't even know what this meant. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about here. So even though I find it more fun and I haven't felt like it made me weaker, will you give us the rundown of what the change is, why people might be not liking it as much?
yeah. So if you're playing a fair game, this is a great change for you. The thing is, a lot of people didn't realize that holding certain types of items changed the level up because the three options that you used to get were tied to the items you had in your inventory between the board and your chest. So if you didn't have any shield items, you wouldn't get offered like a shield buff. If you didn't have any aquatic items, you wouldn't get offered an aquatic thing. So on and so forth. There's plenty of them that are like generic organic things. Get an item, get a tool, blow blood. Those could come up anytime. But the big thing I would do in Vanessa, right? If I'm playing like a crit Vanessa build and just playing a lot of weapons, I'm not playing any shield items or anything like that, and I'm selling them every time I get them. So, but I'm holding on to a bunch of weapon items. I'm trying to have as many of those as possible. If I can have 15, then when I hit the option that gives you 2 damage to all your weapons for each one in, on your board and in your hand, then you get like plus 30, damage or whatever. That never happens, but still getting plus 14 is it's really cool across 7 items. And then same thing with the lose 10% HP, get 10 damage, and get plus 5% crit. I was always hunting for that, and the fact that you don't have any tools and you don't have any shield items, you're not going to get those upgrade kind of things nearly well at all, and sometimes nearly as much.
I think that's fun because I like someone that pretty much only plays Pygmalion. Like I never really noticed that, because so many of my conditional level up spawning things are just like not actually conditional. They were the, get 2 change, upgrade your change, get 3 spare change, like get 5 spare change, or get 2 friends. If you have a friend, get 2 more. Get 2 income if you have 25 gold, or if you have a property, get 2 more income. But those would show up no matter what, because they do give you a benefit. They're not completely useless. So even though you didn't meet the requirements to get the good version of it, like my level ups were always so frequently HP or like something like that. So the 5 actually has felt like a buff when I'm playing. However, I wouldn't be surprised if on a larger scale it is actually weaker, especially because now that the pool is more diluted as well with things that are like less powerful. However, it does feel like I get to more. It's funny. So the effect as a player, it feels like I get more options to tailor my build, when in reality, I get less options, but it was because of a relatively hidden mechanic that wasn't obvious unless you knew. So it actually does maybe make your build weaker, but in a way that makes it feel like you have more, say over your build, which I think it's actually, I just think this is a good way to do it. But
This is a
maybe,
really good way.
yeah. So I think that's all I really care about talking about the balance changes, unless there's anything else that you thought was relevant that we should bring up.
No, I did want to say that I also love the automatic upgrade at level 5/6. It's not always at 5, but it's just like it's not always at level 10 either. Sometimes it's 11. And it's supposed to be that you get the enchantment at 15, but it's really like more often on 16. So um and I did want to bring up the second kind of nerf to it is now you're much less statistically likely to get upgrade any item. So right, because they added
Hmm.
more things to the pool and like etc. And now there's not the targeting. So with the targeting, you actually would get upgrade your leftmost item a lot more often. And now you get like upgrade your leftmost shield or heal item. And sometimes those don't really matter to you. You might have a bad item for that or just not one at all.
Or it's like, oh yeah, because a lot of times I'll get like upgrade my leftmost shield or heal, and it's like it's the bird, and I'm like, yeah, but who fucking the bird is like 99% at good as good at like bronze as it is as diamond. It's like not it's different, but it's like it's not that much. I think this is a good time. We're about 30 minutes in, not quite. If we do our ad read and then we get into our main topic here. So
Certainly.
we
All
have
right.
a sponsor for today's video. I want to thank you guys for that amazing support we got in the very first one. This is how we keep the lights on. Although Laliette's house looks like it could use a couple more, I guess. All right,
All
take it away,
right.
Laliette.
So step into the arena with the power of a king at your side. Introducing the Lion Cane, the weapon of choice for those who want to dominate the battlefield with sheer presence and unrelenting might. This striking medium weapon doesn't just roar, it bites. Deal devastating damage based on your current health, turning vitality into an unstoppable force of destruction. The stronger you stand, the harder you hit. Whether you're leading the charge or standing tall in the fight, the Lion Cane ensures that your opponents feel the weight of your role. It's not just a weapon, it's a statement. Command respect, command fear, command victory. Don't wait for greatness, seize it. Get your Lion Cane in the Bazaar today and show everyone why you're a true apex predator.
I want to thank the Max Health merchant for paying for that sponsorship. He does have them on sale right now. If you use code PlatinLol for Prez, then you will get 10% off. Link in the description. All right, now with our ad read out of the way, I want to talk about what I would consider our main topic of the day, because a lot of people have talked about the balance patch, the normals issue. So let's remove this. So there is, just to summarize it, I kind of want Laliette to talk about it a bit more as someone that is just smarter than me in general. But basically, there's an issue where in normal play, you are not incentivized to finish your runs. And you only get rewarded if you get to the max number of wins. If we open this up, you get a ticket at 10 wins, nothing before then. So a lot of people will just concede hyper roll, concede hyper until they find some really broken day one build. Because why would you want to waste your time for 40 minutes to get 7 wins when there's no benefit? I would say, a lot of people could say because it's fun to play the game. You can't. We've said it before. You'll say it 1,000 times. Gamers will optimize the fun out of anything. You have to have systems in place to make them have fun. They will optimize the fun out. So can you go into further depth about what the normals issues is? What is actually going on with the unranked version of the game?
Yeah, so we see a lot of complaining on Reddit and in the Discord about people saying that they can get 7 wins no problem in the mode, but at the end of the game, when you're getting to day 11 and 12, they're just hitting these unbelievable builds. And I've made a mistake a couple times where like when you first click to play the game, it usually starts you in normal.
Yeah.
And if I forget to move over to ranked and I just click play, I might not even realize that I'm not playing. So I just play a full run, right? I'm not dropping out and doing anything. I think I'm playing ranked. And then at the end, when I get 10 wins, I'm like, I got a ticket. I didn't get any chests. And I'm like, oh, I'm just an idiot. I played the wrong mode. But what I will tell you is that the couple of times that's happened over the last week, I have a hell of a time getting 10 wins. Like these people are busting my ass in the mid game. They are so strong, and even in the early game. But like, I would like to think that a lot of my skill is in like the first 4 days, and then I kind of just like snowball my ability to generate money, or if I have items that are scaling and take advantage of that. And I really struggled to win past day 12. as probably everybody in the game does, because the only people left at that point are really, really strong. So there's probably only like 10-20% of people doing this regularly, like re-rolling the first couple days. But if you don't have the ability to buy currency and you only have your one free run a day, you're going to be playing normals and you're going to be trying to get 10 wins. And if you're just an honest person who enjoys playing the game, these 10-20% of people or whatever are going to min-max the fun of the game right out from under you because you're at a huge disadvantage. You're playing an honest run and they are playing until they get something that's broken.
And a perfect example, I think, also is one. I think you mentioned, and some people I've heard mention that normal is harder than ranked because of this. People getting hyper rolls, and basically going hardcore. But again, if people playing normal builds are only making it to day 7 or 8, and not really winning, that mean like it's just like whenever you get to that point where you're in potential to get 10 wins, if you're not a hyper build, you're going up against these like monster builds that are high rolling everything. So they might only make up 10 or 20%, but how many runs make it to that top 10, 20% anyway, you know? Like, so it becomes so much harder to actually get a ticket. Not to mention, if you can't afford the currency and this is how you're trying to get your tickets, the chances are, like maybe you got a code from the game, you might only have Vanessa unlocked. It costs currency to unlock the other characters. And right now with Pygmalion being number 1, if you're going into day 11 and you're maybe not the best at the game, and you're going up against a Pygmalion, like they have the bees right now. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know? So it's like the fact that not all the characters are free directly, they cost an in-game currency. I think kind of compounds this effect as well. So right now normals are kind of in a messy state. But we should, let's talk about what are the solutions we think that they could have. What are you thinking?
So I'll first go over the two solutions that I've like heard. I kind of pushed on Reddit the second solution, but the first solution I'm not as big of a fan of. But of course, you could make it cost some currency to play,
Mhm.
right? I think the big and have a free entry, right? Like one free entry a day, like in the ticket, but then maybe 5 or 10 gems. I don't like that idea because you'll of course have to spit out some gems in normal to kind of make up for the fact that there's an entry fee. The second mode that I prefer, or the way of fixing this, is to just add a punishment, right? So if you play any online like multiplayer and you quit out in the middle of a match, it's going to give you a warning, and then the next time you do it, it's going to like say for the next half hour you're just not playing the game. So this would only apply to normal, right? You could still go play a ranked run if you had the ability to. But I don't think it's good to allow an abusive mechanic like just restart until I get something crazy, because of course, if everybody's doing that, that's one thing, but a lot of people don't even think like that. So it's just like we want the majority of people playing the game. That's where your player base is, and we want them to enjoy the game, and we don't want min maxers to be able to take advantage of the mechanics. So we have to fix it, at the tempo level.
Yeah, and like another solution, one, it's like I hate both of those solutions, even though I don't know exactly how they fix it. Again, I'm not a game designer. Putting a it depends how long. If it's like 2 minutes, maybe that's not the world's biggest deal. But you can't have it so low where people don't care. But if you have it too high, then it just feels like then people aren't going to play the game at all because they'll just be upset at they'll be like, all right, well, it's a half hour I have to wait. I guess I'll just go do something else, and then they don't come back or something like that.
Well, you put it in the patch notes, right? So well, not everybody reads the patch notes, but it's at least out there for people to understand. And then when it happens the first time, you probably do get that issue, but the next time they're just not going to quit.
I know. I still think like overall, I think the average player will just get frustrated because they don't have any currency to play ranked, and now they can't play normal, and they're just gonna be like, well, I'm just gonna close the game down. I don't think it's necessary. Like, I actually think that's probably the better of the two solutions. I think the currency one is just like, I don't think the player base would respond to that very well for lots of reasons. So the potential of backing out of a casual free mode, having a penalty, feels kind of bad, but I think it might be better of the two. The other one I think could be is just breaking up the rewards in some way where, because right, I think the core issue is that you only get something if you get 10 wins. I think you got to be careful with it, but if you could get like maybe instead of a ticket at 10 wins, you get like, I don't know, 6 coins, and every time you get 6 coins, you get a ticket. But it's like at win 4, you get 1 coin. At win 7, you if you end at win 7, maybe you get 3 coins, like effectively a sixth of a ticket, a half of a ticket, or a full ticket, depending on how far you make it. That way you could do 6 runs at 4 wins and still unlock a ticket. That way you're always incentivized to keep going. I think that there is potential for bots to manipulate that, and to like you could develop bots. So like I think it's a perfect solution if bots didn't exist. But if you have a server of 1,000 bots that can on average get 4 wins, like, and then they get as many tickets as they want, and then they go into the ranked mode with those tickets, and then they devalue all the cosmetics, which is kind of an underlying fun to the game, or not fun, but an underlying like mechanic with like this borderline NFT aspect. I think that that is not a perfect solution. So I don't know if they need to do some sort of combination of these, but I think fundamentally, I think the issue comes from the only reward being at 10 wins, making it even for free players. If you get to 7 wins, you just feel like this sucks. You know, you don't feel good even if you get there. I would like to see little milestones, just like in ranked mode. Obviously not chests, but maybe partial tickets, I think.
Yeah, I do want to bring up that adding more rewards to it does not fix the issue that min maxers are going to take the best min max approach and are going to ruin the fund at the end of the game, right? It's not really a problem at the beginning of the game as much because you're going to play against the entire pool of players
Yeah.
at the beginning. But when you get to day 12, 13, 14, the only builds that make there are the strongest builds, and the odds that those are going to be min maxers is much increased.
Yes, I think that that's less of an issue when you can be like, well, at least I got 7 wins and I can get out of this hell queue. Again, that is not a perfect solution, but a consolidation prize I think is better, because right now, like, you get to 9 wins, you get nothing, and you've spent 45 minutes of your time feeling like you've wasted it, which is not what you did waste it, because you're playing a video game for in-game rewards. It's all a waste. But you want a game that makes you want to waste your time, not feel like you wasted your time. You want to feel like you're doing something. So I do think that is, I think it is a multi-pronged solution. I don't think any one change is going to fix it completely. The closest is adding a cooldown to, like, all right, if you maybe you leave the very first time, it's a minute, the second time it's 5 minutes, the third time, and then, you know, maybe if you leave 3 times in a day in a 24-hour period, now it's a 30-minute, then it's an hour, you know, like some sort of progressive thing where you can get people that reroll once and reroll twice. Like, all right, I'm willing to wait 10 minutes and then come back, but after like 3 or 4, suddenly for that day, like, you're just completely kicked out. I think it's a little bit better, but it's hard to say. It's definitely an issue, I'll say that, because right now no one wants to play normal mode. Ranked is both easier with all the rewards, and it's kind of like the rich get richer, right? Like, I'm at 7,000 currency and 32 chests. I never need to go into this normal queue ever. But the people that are trying to get out of the normal queue are struggling because it's hard to get that ticket. And if you're not playing in ranked, you might not be that skilled in ranked because it might be a different meta in general. And so now you're maybe not getting the most out of that daily free ticket. But over the course of a week, if you can still get the multiple free tickets, you should be able. But if everyone's goal is to never play the normal queue because it fucking sucks, that's an issue with the normal queue. It's not like, well, you don't need to play the normal queue because after a week you get 7 free tickets. You just, on average, 3 to 7 wins, you get a couple hundred currency, and then you can kind of go infinite or whatever and keep using the free tickets. I'm like, yeah, but if everything is built around trying to avoid the normal queue, that shows that there's an issue. Not that just because you could bypass an issue doesn't make the issue not exist, you know?
And mathematically, everyone can't go infinite.
Of course.
Right? So it's like only like 30% of people can go roughly infinite. It's not truly infinite, but good enough. Where if you're not playing all day, you know, you're fine. You play 2-3 runs a day, you can go infinite at 7 wins.
Yeah. The free ticket means everyone's technically infinite from day one because you get one win, you get one a day. But if you want to play more than one run a day, you're not, yeah.
And I had done a little bit of talking about the lack of rewards, and the solution that I put forward for that, which I thought was a separate conversation, because I just don't like abusive mechanics. Because, like, if I didn't have money in the game, I would re-roll every time. Why? Because I'm a min-maxer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to admit that I'm a min-maxer, and that makes things worse for other people. But I don't believe in blaming players for things, right? You blame systems that, give the incentive. But when it comes to the lack of rewards and if things feeling bad at 7 wins, I don't know if bots can really get 7 wins right now, but
I doubt it.
someday they might be able to.
Yeah, I
But,
doubt
like,
right
let's
now
say
they
they
could.
can't, right? Why not have some kind of small rewards at 7, 8, 9 wins, right? And I know that's not how we do things in ranked, but it doesn't have to be like ranked because it's normal, right? You
Yeah.
could do 1/6 of a ticket, 1/4 of a ticket, 1/2 of a ticket, or whatever like you want, for that scaling. Where not only do you get something at 7, but you get something better at 8 and 9, and that would at least address the people wanting to play normal because we really do want people to want to play normal. Um, because you need a player base, and the only way you get a player base is to make the game fun, not just at the competitive scene, but at the general use.
And and normal has multi-functions. It's not just, yes, it's a way for free to play players to break into the quote unquote pay to play mode, which it is pay to play, of course, but it's like, I would say it's a pretty low pay to play bar. But it is a way for someone in Brazil or Venezuela where people like literally can't spend money on the game. There are people that can't spend money in the game, not even because they don't have money, but because there's not payment options for it, you know? And so now they can play the normal mode, get into the ranked mode, and then start gathering, these resources. Um, so that's number one. Number two, it's in theory a great spot to test new builds without hurting your rank. So you can go in like, I want to do Brass Knuckles got a buff. I'm gonna go all in on Brass Knuckles. Shit, Brass Knuckles sucks. I just got 3 wins and I dropped 20 ranks. Like that feels bad. You don't want to do that. And also, there's a huge amount of people like that just don't like the stress of ranked. That just wants to play casually. Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. They just want to have fun, but they don't like it's like taking a test when you're playing ranked. I don't feel that way because I've played a lot of ranked. It's my default mode, but I know people that are like, I just avoid ranked. I don't want to feel like I play games to relax, not worry about my win rate, you know? And so normal mode is very important to the economy and the mentality and the whole player base for different reasons. Different people, different reasons. Top tier players can test new builds without fearing of losing their rank. New players have a way to learn the game while getting into a supposedly more competitive mode, and other people get to use it to relax. So it being a dog water mode right now for most of the player base is definitely an issue, and I'm sure they're working on it. And I'm not saying what the fuck are they doing over there. It's a closed beta. I'm not mad at them. The reason we're even talking about it is because it's a problem that exists in the game, and I haven't really heard that many people talk about it in a video aspect. Like I'm sure I've heard it on streams or something, and on Reddit posts, but I want to make sure that it's out there and people are aware of it. That way they're not going to fix a problem that they don't know the community has if they're not checking it. But I feel like it's worth bringing up at the very minimum, right?
Well, I also want people who are just like, I've seen a lot of Reddit posts where they're like, I suck at the game, right? And if you're playing normals all day, you might not actually suck at the game. If you're playing like honest and every time you're like, I'm playing this run, I go all the way through because I just couldn't imagine people being abusive about, that mechanic. Now at least you have an additional cope like mechanism. And I'm not saying it as in a negative cope, but I mean like actually like
Mm-hmm.
you're probably going to do 2 wins better on average if this wasn't an issue. And that's one of the things that I would like, to be a thing. That's why I push for the longer queue times because I just want to punish the people who are purposely quitting. Now, if you get a DC, like that's why I like warnings, right? Because like if you get DC'd, you really don't want. But I think they fixed the issues where like if you're DC'd, no matter what, you always load back into the run now, right?
Yeah, I've never lost a run. I have had multiple rollbacks since the new patch, but it still was like that first day, and I haven't really had that issue since. But yeah, like I know what the rank ladder is like right now, which it gets brutal on some of these later days with these B builds and the mega high rolls. I can't even imagine normal where people are actually just re-rolling, where people are like, hey,
I
it's
don't want
day.
to know what beads look like on day 11 when you can re-roll into like,
You
oh, I
get B.
started with.
You could literally get B day one if you get a Sterling merchant and the beehive is there, or you can get it very easily on day 2 because it's a medium at property. So the medium merchants sell it, the property merchant sells it. He doesn't usually show up that early, but non-weapon item like there's a lot of items in these pools, but it's not that hard to find early. It's hard if you spend $100 or 100 currency and then you have to find it. But if you just re-roll 10 times, I mean, you're gonna find it more than 1 out of 10 times, I bet. So yeah, I don't want to know what the normal ladder is like right now. I'm not treading in there, and I'm a top 200 player, or I'm ranked 204 right now, and I'm not even considering going to the normal because that's probably a miserable experience. So I hope this is something they address. Hopefully we brought up some reasonable solutions for them. I trust them more than me to come up with something that's good. However, they also did buff the bee. So I'm joking. I'm just teasing. Like, I actually think that was just a bit of
I
an
think their
oversight.
track record is pretty good across the board. Like they're probably executing at like 90%, in my opinion, of like good decisions over questionable decisions,
Hmm.
and that's really good during a beta. So they're doing
Well,
a great job. I throw a lot of love to the team. I'm a critical thinker, so unfortunately sometimes that comes across as critical, but we just love the game, and if there are issues that are affecting players, we just want that to be voiced. So tell me about the character power tier list. How are you thinking about who is the strongest character in the game? You already said Pig, but you always say Pig. So I don't know if that's necessarily always true. Maybe someday you'll say, I just don't feel like Pig's that strong.
I actually think in last patch, everyone thought Pig was the strongest, and I was kind of more on the Vanessa is the strongest train. Um, but it's hard for me to tell because I play so much Pig that I feel like I play Pig at a high level, so I don't have that many issues. How much of that is Pig being the strongest and how much of that is me being good with the character? I don't know. Right now, for me, there is no question Pig is the strongest because B is so powerful and easy to find. It doesn't counter, we've talked about it already, but it doesn't counter literally every build, but it counters literally all but like 3 potential builds. I don't even know if Vanessa has a build that can counter B. Like Pygmalion has a couple one item builds, like, and they have a couple caltrops that can counter B in a sense. I don't know if Vanessa even has an option. Like, you're not gonna outscale and heal a B with when it has weights going and extra healing and scaling. Like, I just don't think you can, but maybe. um you think
I think
Vanessa has
it's
a build?
possible with the critical one weapon builds, right? So you could go like sniper
I
rifle
will say
with
I did almost
lifelink
lose to a
and
sniper rifle.
100%. Right. And so, and there is a skill in the game that belongs to a monster that does the sniper rifle effect. So you could put it on something else, and it does stack on the sniper rifle. So you can have sniper rifle hitting 6 times, and have that life link and critical. But like that's a high roll, and when you don't high roll, just sniper rifle with the critical build is not that great against the general meta. So even if you can beat bees, which I'm not convinced you're really above 50-50, you're going to lose to a lot of other stuff like Armadillo.
Yeah, so even the really, really good build against it is typically not very good against other stuff, and it's not even that. Like, I went up against a all-in sniper build and I destroyed it, because it did like 3,000 damage every like 6 seconds, but I had 15,000, 20,000 HP, and they just died before they could really do enough hits to even kill me. And because I'm mostly a heal pig anyway, I could heal most of that up. Two, the one thing that Vanessa has that is really good right now, if you're running it, but again, you're running it as a meta call and you're losing against everything else, is Harpoon. Harpoon just kills the bee. I have lost a lot of runs against late game Vanessas that are just running Harpoons because they kill my bee, then they kill my yo-yo, and then my build is just weights that does nothing. I'm like, well, this sucks, but it's fair. Like, that item sucks for the most part. It doesn't suck, but it's not good generally.
And
But
And there is
there,
a port build, right? I don't know if you know what port does, but it gives more ammo to all your ammo items, and it also gives them one or two or whatever scaling every time it triggers. So it's like 6 seconds, give everything in ammo, and charge it like as well. And if you're using port, you're probably trying to get like the infinite like combo with the ammo. But I've walked myself into, a harpoon, and I'm like, ooh, harpoon with 4 ammo, like that's really good. So you throw that in there, and it still triggers the repeater and stuff like that. So that's generally good against everything that
so
I've used it against. I only did it in one run so far, but everybody had things that were small that they didn't want to die.
if you asked me maybe 3 days ago, I would have put Vanessa at number 2. However, I think I've changed my opinion to Dooley at number 2. But I'm still iffy on it. So Pygmalion's number 1, not only because of bees, even though bees is probably the strongest build, but also like he still has high HP pig, which is just by default really good. It's a little more high rolly because you need these items early to scale. He's still got normal heal pig, which is still very strong, almost didn't get touched at all. and he's also got just like Crook Pig. Like he's still got a lot of really powerful stuff he could do. That if you don't get the bees, which is still easy to get. Dooley, I think his only real like build that is better than Vanessa is the Harmadillo, but the Harmadillo goes really hard. It's a very strong build. It's not on the level of bees, but I think it's like by far like the second best thing you could be doing in the game right now. Harmadillo with bunker is kind of crazy. But I think it's probably not optimal. I think it's just optimal fun, because I don't know if you've gone up against it with the sandstorm, but once the sandstorm starts, the bunker shields every time you take damage, and Harmadillo attacks every time you shield. So every instance of the sandstorm's damage, so like he went from like 1 attack, 2 attack, 3 attack, and I was like, I was fine. And then sandstorm came in and the Harmadillo went, it was maximum animation rate once the sandstorm hit, and that was max fun. That was really cool. I still beat him because I still was doing my broken stuff, and I had 15,000 shields, and he didn't actually get through it. But Harmadillo is very strong. There's no doubt about that. I think that puts Dooley at number 2. He doesn't really have any other builds that I think are that level, especially with Pierre Conditioner now being even harder to get to. He has like, again, double core builds that are strong.
Is still pretty good. Like dual core is just as good as Poison Vanessa.
You think it's as good as Poison? So the issue is dual, like you said, there's not an issue. I think Dooley's number 2, and I think that is good, especially if it's on par with Poison Vanessa. Poison Vanessa is still super strong, and I think she beats Dooley if she's like crit, dagger, repeater, blunderbuss stuff, you know, because the dual core just takes a little bit to get going, and you do like 90% of your damage in the first 4 seconds of combat, and Dooley is not known for having a lot of HP. He has a lot of shields, but not a lot of HP. So I think Dooley is actually not that great against Vanessa on average. However, I think Harmadillo is kind of just putting him on top right now. So I'd put Vanessa as the weakest character.
Every Vanessa build that I have, other than Poison, but like that's just kind of a mechanical thing where it's like you're not interacting with what they're doing, but they can still just kill you, like with the Harmadillo. So that's kind of like frustrating. So they actually, if they're popping off and doing good, they're gonna kill me before I kill them with the poison.
Yeah, it's Harmadillo is super strong, this is kind of I think this is actually an issue right now. Pygmalion, I think, is number 1, kind of hands down, because he has so many builds that are pretty strong, and his strongest build is stronger than anyone else's strongest, and it's not that hard to get going. Dooley is number 2 because he has the second strongest build. I don't think he has nearly as much flexibility in his power, but I still think it's there. And Vanessa is number 3. She's still very strong, but I think
there's only 3.
Yeah, I think that her best build is just not as good as the other people's best build, but I think she's closer to Pygmalion and diversity of powerful in her power in her builds. However, I think it's an issue because Vanessa's the free character. She's the only one everyone's guaranteed to have as well, and right now I think she's on the bottom of the power rankings. So I think that kind of doubles down. Like, all right, it's even harder to get 10 wins potentially as Vanessa as it is as Pygmalion. And if you're a player that's can't spend money in the game, you literally can't get Pygmalion unless you have 500 currency for the first one and 1500. That's 5 rank tickets worth of currency. It may not seem like a lot to me, but it's like, that's a lot if you have 0. If you gave me 0 and I had to go into normal free play mode, I had no chest, no currency, that would not be quick to get some ranked games going, you know? It takes a lot of time. So
it took me like 5 days to get to 500 currency, because I did start at 0 because of the chest issue, right? So and because I thought I didn't know you could spend currency. So I did give myself like a few tickets and then go in there and grind, and now I'm up to like 2,500 in-game currency. But that's all I've gotten for the entire time of the closed beta.
And that's going to be enough for a new character when Mac comes out. You're going to be able to buy Mac and have a couple left over, you know? Because I think they're going to be 2,000 when they come out, maybe 2,500, but I think they're 2,000.
And I probably won't. I'll probably just spend money on the game because I want to support the game, and I just like seeing my number go up and my, you know.
Once they start adding things that I could buy, I will start spending money. Absolutely. Even if it's just, I don't think, it's kind of weird. Are they going to let you buy cosmetics? Or are cosmetics all going to come from chests? Or it'll definitely be maybe completely, I don't know. It's however they're going to do it. They said they're going to release hero packs. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe it's a hero with a bunch of cosmetics, because there's obviously not going to be any in-game
Hero
power.
packs are mini decks that will add to your player pool.
Okay, so they're like expansions for heroes, kind
Yep.
of. Okay, so those are going to be sold separately, I suppose.
Yeah, you should be able to just buy those with money.
That's actually interesting, because if they add a pack and it's weak, you might be at a disadvantage if you buy it, unless you could choose to opt out of it or something. I don't know. They are
That
not
is the
dumb. They
horrible.
have they have made probably the single best auto battler asynchronous game of all time. I'm not going to be like, whoa, these dummies based off this thing that I heard that I read on Reddit. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. I'm sure they're going to handle it and they're going to do a wonderful job. They're obviously, their game design skills are on point. They know what they're doing, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just excited to be
And
able to
Rain
spend more
had
money in the game.
Yeah, in his like 2 hour Q&A they did like 8 months ago or whatever. And of course everything's subject to change, but he was talking about the balance issues that come with doing these kind of like, player edition packs, because you obviously can't make it too weak, nobody's going to buy it, right? Why
Yeah.
do you want to make it harder? People like Crip will play it, and really good players who want more diversity, but like the average player is not going to sign up to be weaker. And you don't want it to be more powerful and make it more pay to win, right? So,
Exactly.
but it does have to be inherently more powerful, because if you just add more options that are the equal power level, now you
It
have a
just,
less chance of hitting the things, which makes you actually weaker.
yeah.
So it has to actually be a little bit higher power level than other things, because you're going to see them less often. So I really liked the way that, well, I like how Reynad looks at game design in general, like across the board, and that's why I think we have this gem of a game in front of us.
Anyone that's played a card game, and this isn't a card game, even though it's like underneath the hood, in a lot of ways it is a card game. It just, all the visuals of the cards are kind of gone in a sense. I guess they are called card back, so I guess it is. But the point is, if you've played like a real like card game like Magic, everyone knows 61 cards in your deck is worse than 60 cards in your deck. Anytime you add a card above the minimum limit, you are diluting your deck and it is worse. The thing is, in this, you don't have the option to remove cards. So if you're opting in to add cards, they have to, on average, over the course of 100 games, 51 of them have to be stronger. Because you wouldn't, even 50-50, you could argue that, but I would still say no, because not only, it may add fun, but you have to spend money. So I would say even then, you need at least 51 of those games to be stronger than those other 49. In order to be better. And ideally, it's probably going to be more than that, because who wants to spend money for a 1% increase? But I mean, still, most people won't. Yeah. So, though, is that, do you agree with my tier list for the characters right now? The character power list,
I
or would you?
sadly do, as a Vanessa player. So I have, for probably a week now, been doing every other game as Vanessa and Pig, right? Because I'm really trying to build those pig skills, etc. And like I said, every time I play Dually, I kind of get pissed off, so I don't do it for long. But I will be
I
playing a
lose as
Dually run
Dooley
immediately
every fucking
after this.
time, man. I'm so
Like
bad at
and
Dooley.
like now I do have one build that I can play with Dooley and get on average like 8 wins, right? And that's dual core before the patch, so who knows after the patch. But
Mhm.
and now that I know Armadillo is good from playing against it, so hopefully I can figure out how to play that. And then I'll have two options of builds to play for Dooley. And I think that's the number one problem people have, is that if you don't watch people play a lot of Dooley in streaming, it can just be a really hard build to play, because a lot of the items you look at are so specific to what they do that you're like, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. So you're just limiting your options too much and not staying open, which is the whole purpose of the game.
Yeah, like I like Dooley because he's so cool and he has all the friends and stuff. And I think it's funny that the robot is the one with all the friends, but I think it's like fun. But also, like, there is a skill cap difference in that character and other characters, because like there are times it's legit to not run your core at all. And most, unless you're a super experienced Dooley player, you're probably not going to realistically ever take your core out, because it just seems like such a powerful item, and usually it is the right play to play it. But also, like, I don't like being, I feel like when I pick a core, so one of the worst things you could do in a game like this is when you pick, like, especially in like TFT, is like your first hero, I'm going all in on that thing for the rest of the game, no matter what comes to me. And Dooley is a more extreme version of that. It's your core. It's called the core. It's like, and when you level up your core sometimes. And so you get skills for your core. So you feel like you're always forced, and not even day one, hour one into this build, but that's I think it's a bit of a fallacy because it's not always the right thing to do to go all in on this
Yes.
core. But it's really hard to mentally get over that because when you're trying to optimize, you know that this is always going to be with you for the whole game. You know it's always going to get stronger through the course of skills or items. There's a lot of things that interact specifically with it. So it's a difficult character in terms of the decision tree. The decision tree is much more complex, in my opinion, which I think is probably Crip's favorite character, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why really, really highly skilled players that play a lot of characters love this character. Whereas me, I like Master. I just like Pygmalion because to me, he is a merchant and this is the Bazaar, and that was the flavor I really liked. He just happens to be super strong, which is
And
nice.
he's kind of the tank character, right? So
Yeah.
like if people like tank roles in other games, if you like the aggro role, you're probably gonna be more of a Vanessa player. Like I've always been an aggro player or a DPS build in a lot of games. And then Dooley's the like support slash tech piece, you know, and way harder to play like a lot in other games. The thing that you said that you nailed with Dooley is like, say I pick crit core. It's like, well, I'm playing critical, so I take all the critical items, I take all the critical skills, etc. You will get 2 wins. You can that's not how you can play the Bazaar. That's
Hmm.
just not how it works. So you do have to kind of be like self-aware where you're like, I'm not going to zoom in on only fire items when I'm using the fire core, or only, actually you probably right now could get away with playing only shield items with a shield core. But like for the most part, you just kind of want to stay open. And the thing I compare it to is Poison Vanessa. The proper way to play Poison Vanessa, in my opinion, is you don't actually play Poison Vanessa. You play ammo dagger weapon scaling stuff for day 1, 2, 3, 4. You keep on getting a little extra money here and there, right, by playing really tight pockets and taking free stuff, and then you squirrel away the poison pieces. And then when you get to like day 6 or 7 and you have a full poison build, you slot in the full poison build. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And
Because it's really it's I can't tell you how many day 4, day 5 poison builds I face, and they're just dog shit. Unless they get like a really specific skill combination, it's like +7 poison on your rightmost item and stuff like. But like a lot of times it's like 3 poison, 3 poison. I'm like yo, just smacking them in the face with a flail like it's nothing, right? So it's really
and of
weak
course,
until it clicks, and then it clicks hard, like really good.
the way I figured that out was by getting dumpster fired right on day 3 and 4 with a pufferfish and like one haste trigger, and I'm just like exactly what you said, 3, and then they're like 30, and I'm like 3,
3, yeah,
and
and
they're like,
then they have a bird and they instantly remove all the poison anyway with a triple multicast. I think once they fix B, I think poison build might be on top again. I think it's possible. I don't know because right now poison build fucking gets destroyed by B. I think because a lot of it's like you could haste all your items, you could slow all my items. I have 999 seconds of slow on all my items. You have 100 seconds of haste on all your items. I attack
mhm.
just as fast as you, and I scale way harder than you. Um, I think
I
once
think
the B gets adjusted, it'll be much, much closer in power level to Armadillo, Poison, and like normal heal Pygmalion. I think we'll all be a little bit closer together.
if we just look like say we get rid of B, right? We nerf B, and we look at all of the decks that we're tiering right now. It's like Poison Vanessa can't beat raw heal, right? You just out heal for 1,000, right? I have to get like 20,000 stacks to really kind of like kill you. Um,
That's true.
Dagger
A
and
high
ammo
roll
build.
heal is really hard to beat, but if you get Vineyard late and it only is healing for like 50, like it's still hard to outscale it, but 1,000, 2,000 poison can do a lot still. It can win, but I agree it's probably not the best matchup as it is a mechanic designed to minimize your impact. Healing debuffs a poison, and that doesn't normally
Yeah,
debuff
I'm kind of
itself.
trying to think like day 12, 13, right?
Yeah.
What these builds are looking like against each other. And I've struggled against like a 25,000 HP player, right?
Yeah, that
It's
has a lot of HP. And Pygmalion, does any character get that high, or is it just Pygmalion?
it's just Pygmalion. I've seen a 20,000 dually on Crypt, but that was a diamond Walter Cooler, right? And doing just like you play against the bots and you take your damage out and you just scale.
The amount of
Like,
effort you need to put, like, I take it for so much granted. I will have on day 6 2,500 HP. By day 9, I'll have 15,000 HP. Right? It's like once I get to a point where I get my build together, like, all right, I'm just gonna spend my resources on increasing HP at this point. It just goes crazy so fast. Like, I take it for granted how easy it is to get tanky as pig. And if you start with arms dealer, that is such a strong skill. It is
It's
ridiculous.
getting nerfed.
It's
I
got to
am
get nerfed.
very
I hope they
confident.
don't remove it from the pool. I just want them to give it a
No,
power decrease by maybe
drop it by
50%.
33%, right? Like have the gold 20.
The gold 20, that's probably fair. I think that might be too strong. I think 15 might be more where it's a sweet spot. Maybe I'm wrong, but because it activates on buy and sell. So it's like, it's 30 HP for every
Yeah.
hatchet you find. So that's still like the
Well,
the difference between having like on day, especially again, winning day 1, 2 and 3 is actually pretty important because it saves you from day 11, 12, 13 potentially. And
yeah.
so if you just have if they have 250 HP as Vanessa and I have 600 HP on day 1, day 2, it's like doesn't matter that they have triple my damage. They're gonna get not even halfway through my HP by the time the sandstorm kills them. So it is actually crazy powerful. So I'm leaning more towards 15 being fair, and it still might be a snap pick for me every single
If
time.
you think 15 is fair, then the mechanical thing that would probably just be better is just get rid of one buy or sell, right? And then
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
still 30, but it's really 15 like
I think that makes sense.
effective.
If you make it on also, one of the issues right now is that it synergizes so well with Regal Blade, which is already maybe the best starting item. So if you get Regal Blade and the Weapon Merchant, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna go to Andy, buy hatchet, sell hatchet. I'll even sell a fucking yo-yo on day 1. I don't care, bro. 60 HP and 40 damage on my weapon for 1 gold. I'm in.
Yo-yo is not good on day 1 anyway.
Yeah,
Like
it's 1 HP. I'll usually buy it. That way I just have it and I never need to look for it. But still, if you're telling me a yo-yo for 1 gold, because you sell it for 1 gold, if it's 60 max HP, 40 damage on my weapon on day 1, that is absurd. That is so much value. All right.
40 damage on your weapon would mean you have a diamond Regal Blade.
No, it starts at 20 damage oh, that's right. It's not a buy sell. It's just on sell. I was thinking of it had a buy and sell effect. It's 20 damage,
Yeah.
but it only procs the 1 time. Okay, we are starting to run over. We're just over an hour, so let's finish up here with our item highlights. Will you tell me? Let's have you go first because I was just talking. You wanted to tell me
Sure.
about cannon.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick a Vanessa item, obviously. Cannon, I think for until day 6 is just really, really strong. It's
I don't
it's
have
one
it.
of the
We'll look
few
at this.
items that like goes kind of crazy once it gets 1 upgrade, right? You just need the 1 upgrade to go from like 30, whatever damage and some burn to like 60 something damage and some burn, and then of course hit level 5. I'm not saying it's the best target, but if you don't have anything going on, getting it up to like 120 damage and like 20 something burn, because burn is every half second. So like, I've noticed that burn versus poison, like burn actually just will get you killed quicker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because it's hitting twice as fast, so it gets to use its value a lot faster than the poison does, and you generally don't want to put a lot of resources into it. So it's like I don't use my skills to upgrade it very often, but you'll just kind of run into a second a second cannon. Just grab the second cannon, and if you're on day 3, grab the third cannon, and it's really nice to start off 6-0. And then of course you can sell it and do repeater things or something that's better in the game as Vanessa.
Again, one of the things I think cannon highlights is how strong it is to win early because it saves you from the mega insane high roll builds on the later days. Builds on day 12 are a lot weaker than builds on day 13. And day 13 builds are way weaker than 14 on average. Of course, you could find someone that snuck through or like revived and is like already like you could find these weaker builds, but for the most part, every day after day 10, builds get way stronger. And cannon being able to, it's an aggro item. It's really good early. I don't know if it's like you want it on day 10 at that point. Maybe you have a build around it, but like day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this is a fucking powerful item, especially when you upgrade it. It takes, it just does a lot of damage.
And there's so many skills that work with it. So like there's plenty of times I go to the mushroom event and I get a shit skill. It's like a poison skill or well, poison is good in Vanessa right now, but or a fire skill. Well, if you have a fire skill and you have the cannon, then that's excellent, right? Because now you're
Yeah.
actually triggering your effect, and it does damage with the medium weapon skills, with any weapon skill in general. So I just think it gets a lot of that early game usage, and the ammo issue isn't huge when there's 250, 300, 350 HP at the beginning of the game.
And every point of fire is worth more than the last point. Fire 1 to 2 is good, but fire 2 to 3 is better. Fire 3 to 4 is better, because once you hit a threshold where it doesn't entirely fall off before you could reapply it, it then starts to stack, and then it absolutely goes crazy because fire is insane. I tend to not struggle against it because I have a lot of shield on Pig, and it does do half damage, so they need a lot of fire. But still, okay, the item I want to call out here is one that I don't see enough people use, and that is Belt. Belt is one of the most boring line of texts in the game. That does not make it weak, but it does say, like, increase your max HP by, I think it's 50, 75, 100%, silver, gold, diamond. That is good just in general. If you're running Pawn Shop and Belt, this is how you easily get to like the 40,000 plus HP thresholds. Like, you can get absurd amount, and then sometimes that's just enough HP where if they don't have a scaling build, they just never do enough damage to kill you anyway. But what really makes us good in all Pygmalion builds, every single one, not just HP builds, is that there is a lot of ways in this game to increase the percent. You'll get like a percent HP increase. Level up, get 10% HP. You get the magic lamp, 5% 3 times. You go to the temporary boost, it's like 10% HP, something like that. All of these are increased by Belt. So if you have, just to keep the number simple, 1,000 HP, you get a 10% increase, you get 100 HP. Boom. If you equip Belt first and you go up to 2,000 HP, you take the same upgrade, it'll give you 200 max HP. You just got double the amount of HP for that one upgrade. And again, HP is actually very powerful in this game. Like, just being able to survive Crit Vanessa is the only thing that matters. Like, even with an insane B build, sometimes Crit Vanessa could just do enough damage to kill you if I had 4,000 HP. But I don't. I have 14,000 HP, and it just doesn't matter because she gets through half my health, and then she just sits there and goes like, why are you still standing? So you get an absurd amount of free HP from this. I mean, it's easy to get thousands of HP from this just by equipping it before you before you accept these upgrades. Same with Pawn Shop. If you happen to get an early Pawn Shop, you don't need to go a Pawn Shop build. But if you equip it and suddenly you get another 230 HP, you put a Belt on, now you're getting an extra 1,000 HP for these two things combined. You're getting hundreds of more HP. It's a lot of space, but this isn't much space. This is just a medium item. So you should almost always pick up Belt. I would take Belt. If you have no room, I would take Belt over Cash Machine almost every single time. Unless I specifically have like a dog or something where I'm scaling off selling small items. The Belt, I think, will scale your entire character way harder. Is this something you do, Lolly?
So you told me about this right before the pod, so I'm really excited to try this out, because one of the things that I was thinking over the past week, since I've been playing way more Pig, is I'm like, I hits these numbers on HP that I just never seem to hit. You know what I mean? And I'll do some cheesy stuff like pick up the teapot set and then go fight against a weak enemy in the PvE fight and take out all my damage and just try to scale the HP like that, and I never hit these numbers. Well, that's because percentage scaling is ridiculous, because every time you use it, you're getting a larger and larger bonus effect. So if you do this once, that's cool. You get let's say it's at 100%, you get double the effect, right? That's cool. But then it scales, what do you call it? Exponentially, because you're going to then get double the effect on the second time and then third time. And that's just the definition of exponential.
Yeah, because you're getting double of your previously doubled effect, right? So it's getting stronger every time. And it's just, I would say maybe 2. We'll go with 2 uses of Belt on a percent increase is going to give you more HP than that teapot will give you the entire game. The teapot, I'm telling you, one, you never want it in a player fight for the most part. It's okay because it does a percent healing. It can end up getting pretty good, but it's like 2 or 4 max HP, where this just skips all that bullshit. And it's like, hey, you don't even need to have it in your build. You take it off, and you're just getting, boom, here's 100 HP. Next time you're getting 120 bonus HP. Now you're getting 180 bonus HP because you're getting naturally more HP over time too. So Yeah,
Yeah.
belt is
And you
sick
can't get
with
the
it.
pot until later, right? Because
Mhm.
it's a higher graded item. It's gold only. So by the time I'm starting to get the pot, the belt is just so much better because it's like, let's say I have 7k HP. It doesn't matter how much HP I have because it's a static kind of scale. I'm only getting about 200, 250 HP off of these PvE fights, right?
Yeah,
And so the equivalent of that off the percentage scale, and it also doesn't stop me from doing this, right? You could do both at the same time.
easily.
It just takes up more slots.
And the stupid teapot needs battle. This could just like you could literally go to all kinds of skills or events or this or that. Like it shows up all the time ways to get HP. So it's like it's just great, honestly. That's all it is to it. I actually am wondering if you get the temporary boost of 10% HP and then you put the belt on before you take it, then you take the belt off. I wonder if that affects like the outcome. Like if you lose more HP the next day than if you lose 10% of your lower HP, so you actually gain a permanent HP value off of it. It's really hard to test that because you might level up. There's a lot of things that could change. But
That is what I would expect to happen, right? Is that you lose 10% of the lower rate.
yeah, so that if that does work that way, that means this would give you permanent HP even on a temporary HP effect. I don't know if it works that way. And that would only work if you don't use it in combat, because you would have to go into the next day without the increased HP. That's harder to test. I haven't tested that. I could take a look at the
Yeah,
numbers
it's
though,
definitely
otherwise.
testable for sure. Um, and it's one or the other. You're either going to get your lower level HP hit for the captured number of the permanent buff, or which is horrible, you're gonna get like 5x punished, or you're going to only lose 10% of a lower number of HP and keep a permanent buff off of a temporary buff. So either way, if anybody figures that out, put that down in the comments because that's really cool.
That's I think that's a hugely meta relevant. You're not. This is thing. This is one of my favorite items in a way that there are some items like loop that when you're playing the game and you're going up against people, you're never gonna see it. Maybe like you might never see belt, so you may not realize this is the reason why they're so strong because this is in their chest. You know, there are chest items, especially on Pig, maybe other characters, but especially on Pig, that are going to be responsible for their power level that you might never see. Which I like because it kind of keeps it like, oh, this is my secret weapon. They have no how do I have so much HP? Oh, little do you know. I didn't
That's
even have
right.
to invest that much. But I
And
think
so
we're
if
about
you
ready
didn't
to.
know,
Oh, go ahead.
if you didn't know that, I think you actually owe us a subscribe. So, because you'll be using that in your pig games and get us up over that 100 mark. So,
And we actually did get a question last week that I am gonna let you answer right now. It said, Platt, is your friend gonna start his own channel?
no,
He says no. So if you want to
no,
support Laliette, you have to give me money. That's the fact.
that's
If this
right.
podcast ever makes any money, we will split it though. I will give him his fair share. This will not make any money, but if it ever does, we will make sure that Laliette is properly compensated for that.
This is going to make some amount of money. It just will be very small.
No, it's not monetized. It's not making money for me. It'll make
No,
a
no, no,
little.
not the
Oh,
video, the channel. The
oh yeah,
channel
yeah,
will
yeah.
someday make some amount of money.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, that's gonna be everything. Unless you have anything else you would like to say today.
No, like I said, thanks for everybody for the support. We really appreciate it. If you do have questions, we'd love to take them because interacting with people is like probably one of the most fun parts. I always go through the comments and read them and stuff. And yeah, thanks, Platt, for having me on. And I kind of look at this as my channel as well, even though it's not at all, and I don't do any of the work. It's all hidden.
That's okay. Can I just say that the belt has no belt loops, no belt holes in the entire thing? He can't even put it on. He wears this around his shoulder. Like there's the thing, but there's no holes. He literally can't even use this. That's why he keeps it in the chest. He just holds it. Give me my HP, please. And they give it to him. And he's like, all right. Yes, that's all for today, guys. Thank you very much. Per Platypus and Laliette are per Plaudiotipus. We'll see you on the flip flops. Bye.